He did receive significant injuries in this event. Once he is released from that facility, he'll be taken to a local detention facility where he will face the charges up to and including first-degree murder.
Tonight, I was at a vigil outside of FSU's football stadium. There was thousands of people there. It really felt like the entire student body of FSU showed up, many of them tears in their eyes. Behind me, one of the several memorials here on campus, but this one is significant. It's in the heart of campus. This is Legacy Walk, and we've seen many students here come and go and reflect on Thursday's tragedy, some of them praying with the start of Easter weekend. Nick Valencia, CNN, Tallahassee, Florida. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. has announced what he calls a massive testing and research effort to determine what has caused what he calls the autism epidemic. RFK Jr. also said this about people with autism.
This is a preventable disease. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. You have to recognize we are doing this to our children.
Holly Robinson Peach is the mother of a son with autism. He's 27 years old. Thanks for joining us. You did an Instagram post after RFK speaking about your son and what you called his list of nevers. Tell us about that.
Well, Jake, first of all, thank you for having me. When RJ was diagnosed in 2000, we were given a list of nevers. He would never say I love you. He would never mainstream in school, never play team sports. That one got my former quarterback husband in really badly. Never do so many things, never had meaningful employment. And so we called that the Never Day. And when I heard his list of nevers, I was taken right back to that day. And I just thought it was such a wasteful and dangerous use of a platform to talk about these children and adults. My son's an adult, as if they're just disposable, as if they are a blight on society. And it felt like institutionalized hopelessness. That's what we're coming up with.
And what has he been able to do, even, with autism?
Well, first of all, the fact that he mentioned pay taxes first just threw me because I've heard a lot of nevers, but I've never heard that ever as it pertains to autism. Not sure why that was the first one, but he does pay taxes. My son has a job at he has 2 World Series rings in his name. He has thrived. He has done so many things. He's checked almost everything that never was the last thing to go. But at the end of the day, that's my son.
And make us feel like our kids are never going to struggle. Recent interview with the Trump administration's new FDA commissioner, Dr. Marty McCary, suggested that autism is caused by a range of environmental and dietary exposures. In your work with families and children with autism, what's your take on what causes autism and these comments like that? It's dietary, environmental, it's this, it's that. Autism is about causation of memory. But we think if I wasn't getting the answers, and my focus is helping him the best of his life to be able to thrive.
Dr. Larry
So
suggests that
it's not
this
that
is caused by a range of
environmental.
in your work with families and children with autism, what's your take on what causes autism? These comments like that, it's dietary, environmental, it's this, it's that.
Severe issues they are, but in the day, we just want our family, our kids to have the best.
But it was really hard and frustrating.
Focus too much on causation, but I know it's frustrating.
Knowing how to answer it, make the best of his life and be able to thrive, and society doesn't really look down and evaluate. So it's not that I don't care anymore about what causation is, and I'm fine with research. I'm just not okay with you coming out and saying all that our kids will never do, because it's just not true. There are families who do need more support and who have more severe issues, say, than ours. But at the end of the day, as autism parents, we just want our families, our kids to have the best chance at life. So I don't focus too much on causation, but I know it's frustrating not knowing what causes it. And I'm open to all kinds of, us figuring out or trying to figure it out. But we got to do so in a way that is responsible and doesn't lessen or make our kids, seem like they're not worth being in society. And
Survivors are the same. Word to direct and courage award. Amazing.
Diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, we were completely prepared. Why I'm advocating for screening. Talk to your doctor about early screening for type 1 diabetes, because if you have the opportunity to potentially avoid an emergency health situation, why wouldn't you? Thank you, Sanofi, for engaging me to raise awareness about the importance of screening for type 1 diabetes.
Fake.
That's a good question. I mean, every species, because every species moves on their habitat, but there are, I think, of plants, especially that are these unsung heroes, are so important for medicinal purposes, for future potential cures to diseases. And so if you think of plants and where they live, modifying is really impactful. But I also think of birds and really all species like Kirtland's warblers or vireos, ones that we've made huge strides in bringing back from the marine, because we have these species that we're on unsung heroes for medicinal purposes, for future potential cures to diseases. And so these are and where they live, forcing the acres and the reservation in.
If I could channel what I imagine the Trump administration would say, they'd say, the Biden administration, the American people voted against that. And Donald Trump is doing what he said he would do, have red tape for businesses, help supply the country with cheap energy, and if a few animals get killed along the way, so be it. So it is an answer. Your background is in the law. I mean, can that speak successfully?
Under these types of this is a range theory. I do not believe
If I could channel what I imagine the Trump administration would say, they say, you represent the views of the Biden administration. The American people voted against that, and Donald Trump is doing what he said he would do: cut red tape for businesses, help supply the country with cheap energy, and if a few animals get killed along the way, so be it. So as an answer, your background is in law. I mean, can this be challenged successfully, you think, in some way?
Process can be found, but I think I would also recover that if this is a range theory, I do not believe the American public. I would want to concept.
They have a lot of
You mentioned, the terms of the players,
that realm.
the arrival with the experience that was in Argentina, but then you have and Canada teams, technically, they should be racing.
National team
is
the way that we don't spread, we look at nations, but I still believe in that's they have a lot of goals. I think they can run battle. We had those to live off that position.
The arrival of a experience that he has in relation to the female.
That's not the case for Southern. When you think back, that we don't really have that in our system. On that team, we have 13 players of power and even though there's something inside getting the best out of it, when you're back, top like that, at the same time, the not you know, English, I don't know how they do.
I know there's been some criticism and concerns the right man type of personality, but I know you play what you present the personality and the approach from the players.
I mean, so better than 14 stuff. Everybody, when you know,
but I know you were critical of what you saw as the mentality and the approach from the players in that
I mean, Copa, that's a big competition. You know, it doesn't take a lot to do. The U.S. defense, they want to get so that's relevant to help them to get confidence and I just feel like we're playing the same team over and not the opportunity for us in South America on a more consistent basis because all of South America, you really don't get that opportunity. So that's like we just have to around the world in terms of even, you know, the European nations, like it's the same thing playing each other. I think there'd be more excitement seeing other teams and playing in other countries.
Getting into the door open for a return to Spain, and having United impacted the collective and the government.
But at the end of the day, like when I was thinking up, it was always the represent my country. It is unfortunate that we're not going to play much around that, but at the end of the day, it's on the players to their perform and represent their country.
Get away the support of the team heading into what could be a really, really exciting coming year.
They need to do in the right direction. What they can do, and what the players did, they fought, they fought. It looks like a team that was start to build for something. Since that World Cup, it looks like I think we kind of taken a look at that. Get a win, get back on track. The way to do that is playing for each other and playing attacking style. People just feel like you care about it, and I think that's what they need to do, and hopefully they get it done.
We're getting to the point where we couldn't even pay the bill. And that's terrifying to my husband and I.
Yeah.
And then you have the care plan. I mean, without it, I can't even imagine what our bill would have been, but have you thought about creating a program?
So we have the care program, and then we have another program called Reach that will help customers with like an overdue balance, and so they can start paying their bills down.
I hope to see something like that.
Just found this unbelievable sequin dress on eBay. From sellers, probably they did. So, just go and see. And I was putting something sporty, found it in a sick, cherry red, authenticated. Thanks, guys. Nice. And I took it here another $1,000 in the bed. Last year was on trying them. My mom graduated. Yeah. Ventures.
According to survey,
Lifetime.
targeted the governor.
It's really.
You need to leave my family alone.
Audio
You need to
release
get
Dauphin County
my
officials
daughter.
answered a 911 call
And you need to
in Cody
stop.
County to the City 75. Pennsylvania Governor
To go.
Governor Bureau was horrible. I thought really had I would like to apologize.
Specifically mentioned.
Governor Josh Shapiro needs to know that Cody County will not take part in his plans of what he wants to do.
What he meant by that.
According to search warrant, Obama told 911 operators he targeted the governor in part because of what he believed were Shapiro's views of the war in Gaza. To leave my family alone, to get his eyes off of my daughters, and to stop having my friends killed like he killed, had Manny killed 2 weeks ago. Law enforcement officials have not consistently said Obama's alleged attack was motivated by hate or anti-Semitism. When asked about the 911 call, specifically mentioned the Palestinian people, Governor Shapiro responded.
I think that's a question for prosecutors to determine what he meant by that.
That's
And the prosecutor
Rubio said to give up on.
The public defender of Dauphin County, which is representing Obama, said in a statement, the allegation, if true, demonstrates the devastating consequences of severe mental illness, and noted Obama's next court appearance would be postponed.
Military.
Could determine his competency to stand trial.
Diplomatic source says the White House is ready to recognize Russia's control of Crimea, despite the fact that Ukraine repeatedly said it won't cede any territory to Moscow. As President Donald Trump says he wants to see enthusiasm from both Ukraine and Russia to end the war quickly. That's after Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. could give up on
I really
diplomacy in
appreciate
Ukraine if peace
having
is
you on
true.
and
Not days after the U.S. and Ukraine signed a memorandum of intent to pursue their deal on critical minerals, the White House suspended its privileged access to Ukraine's natural resources and repayment for the U.S. military support. For more on this, I'm joined by Surya Dayanti, Senior Fellow with the Atlantic Council Eurasia Center. Now, before that, he served for 10 years as a U.S. diplomat and team at the energy chief at the U.S. MCEP. He's also currently the managing director of the U.S. Ukrainian Energy Company, CEO of a nuclear development company working in Ukraine. I really appreciate having you on. Taking advantage of your expertise in this. So just on the mineral deal, we've been close before any confidence that a deal will actually happen, particularly in light of the Trump administration's latest threats about basically washing their hands of the peace deal.
I think that the MOU Thursday between the United States and Ukraine.
I mean, that's a bit speculative, but a mineral deal, go ahead.
Non-binding agreement to negotiate going forward. Trump has been very on.
I think that's the most likely scenario.
Signs
I
that
think
as early
that
as perhaps
Trump
the
has been
25th
quite
to
clear that
26th of
he
April.
views the money that
But
the
I think
United
that
States has
would
put
be
towards
extremely
Ukrainian defense
Any
as
agreement
something
would
that
take
is
the form of
important,
a
and
functioning
therefore
treaty
wants to
in which
render
there
aid, in his
would
words,
be
essentially to get it
ratified
back.
by
It's
the
worth
Parliament
noting that
and
most of the money the United States has contributed to the Ukrainian defense effort has
So,
actually gone to U.S. companies.
the deal with
70% of the money in years has gone straight back into
I mean,
U.S.
this is a big,
pockets.
zero independent of a peace deal. In other words, for the Trump administration, this would just be a kind of a business deal regardless of who actually controls Ukraine.
I think that's the most likely scenario. I think that Trump has been quite clear that he views the money that the United States put towards Ukrainian defense as
Certainly Ukraine
and that he wants to find a way, in his words, to find
and
peace
it
defense.
might have resources.
It's worth noting that most of the money that the United States has contributed to Ukrainian defense efforts has actually gone to U.S.
Natural
companies.
gas.
70% of the money has gone straight back into the U.S. pocket. But nonetheless, Trump views it as money don't spend. Be something of a campaign promise. He would recoup that money.
Having a construction fund set up that functions essentially as a trusteeship over some of this.
And the mineral deals seems to be
We agree with that against your politics, but also against.
So it's not as we agree with started with what
It must
saying
be maintained that this deal shouldn't be punitive.
if natural resources are
Russia invaded it.
the most probable source of that money.
If the deal is not designed
natural
resources to functionally or effectively and intentionally
as well as
push Ukraine,
fantastic
then it is the best thing for Ukraine, even if it does take lessons in the
And that's
So
the big,
there's a lot of potential there. The construction fund
President Trump,
functions
chair,
over some of those funds. In theory, helps them demand successfully increasing the quantity, but also protect a little bit against politics and also against the possibilities of corruption. Nonetheless, it must be remembered and it must be maintained that this deal shouldn't be punitive. Ukraine should be anything less. If the deal is designed in such a way as to intentionally or effectively or defensively punish Ukraine, then it is a losing for Ukraine. Warning that thousands of foreign investments in
That's the big, the question.
President Trump going to the Fed chair, Jerome Powell today. The Fed chair issued a stark warning on the economic potential consequences of these Trump tariffs. It just started early this morning. Trump taking to Truth Social, accusing Powell of being too late and rogue. And combination the market not taking kindly to those promises, with the Dow opening lower for the day, less than an hour after the opening bell. Damage control. Secretary Scott Bessent. Politico reported that Bessent has been privately urging caution to Trump on these attacks, warning that any attempt to fire Powell will risk destabilizing financial markets. But, predictably, Trump those worried absolutely no mind. He's doubling the house in the overall
Charlotte, explain it to us like we are fast. It's be so sad that Trump is trying to never happen the Fed yet again. Just going to take a step back first, just to know investors have watched Trump take these actions over
Always too late.
weeks. There's no president in history who has repeatedly tried to remake the American economy so quickly in such dramatic fashion. It's a really big moment of
So in further fear and volatility in the market, the Dow finished the day down by this.
It's
Seat at the table now is Charlotte Howard. She's the executive editor.
extremely
Charlotte, explain it to us like we are foul. Why is the market being so upset that Trump is trying to meddle in that? I think we're taking a step back and just noting the extraordinary horror with many investors have those actions over the past few weeks. The Fed is the president in history who has unilaterally tried to remake the American economy so quickly in such dramatic fashion, going forward for the last few weeks. moment of, in 1930, it wasn't the Congress, right? It was the president with Congress.
Functioning of the American market. And a Ford Bronco Sport right now, this car that is fully assembled
Oh, yeah.
in
Now
Mexico.
you have done on his own, exerting his authority through the tariffs and the tariffs in an extremely dramatic fashion, right? So there's been this question, what would restrain the president? So you have Congress not restraining the president. There are some lawsuits on tariffs that might eventually restrain the president, but maybe not, they may be unsuccessful. But
Starting in
the president does not control, does not have authority. The Fed is independent. This is a law of nature that investors depend on the way they depend on revenue. And so the idea that he would overturn to everything else is so fundamentally destabilizing, would be so fundamentally destabilizing to how investors view the reliability of the functioning of the American market. Bronco, that is fully assembled in Mexico, brought across the border, but the made in the United States. But that doesn't make a difference. Car coming over, starting now, we're in the United States now, 25 even over here that are import taxes now, like 20 years ago, two dealers selling the same started in June. They have enough inventory, these inventory already in the United States right now, but once it's really rolls around, that's going to become problematic for ports. United States though, this is a center right next to it. This is manufactured in the United States. This car again, it's foreign now, automated, racing, just foreign parts to be taxed and 25%. Messy this arbitration is. You may make some exact. Car manufacturers are no. Yeah, no, I think I'm over here. There are two vehicles over here that are assembled right here in the United States. However,
exactly, whether it's American manufacturer who makes cars in the US, Nissan, cars or a foreign imports vehicles. Right now, if these tariffs go into effect on May 3rd, that car right there, everything's getting hit and it's going to
brought over the ocean right here in the United States. It's 25% tariff right next to it. But the Nissan Altima is manufactured in the United States. But this car, again, it's like foreign car part. Within a short radius here, that's how like auto manufacturers, dealers, suppliers, and consumers are just trying to make sense of this all.
So Vanessa, I take it whether you buy a Ford or a Chevy or a Toyota or a Mercedes or a Volvo, it's gonna be.
Take 8 seasons to hit the road. Answer the call to California Adventure with Toyota's variable liability. Lease Tacoma for just $199 a month, or get low financing or $3,000 cash back on Tundra.
Wind up costing more because of Trump's tariff.
Exactly. Whether it's an American manufacturer who makes cars in the US that uses foreign parts or a foreign manufacturer that imports vehicles.
Toyota. Take 8 seasons to lease to hit the road. Answer the call to California Adventure with Toyota's variable liability. Single $3,000 cash back on Tundra. Plus, check out the all-new Forerunner. Go places.
Right now,
No,
if the
we're
tariffs go into
vulnerable.
effect on May 3rd on foreign parts, everyone's getting those
Very often breaks down.
Ever feel like a spectator in your own life with chronic
Trump's net approval rating on immigration. In his first term, he was underwater at this point. 12 points more of the public, in fact, disapproved than approved of the job he was doing. But look at where we are now in April of 2025. He's actually slightly above water. He was above water in term one and is now below water. It's the exact opposite of what's going on. And the numbers have he stayed pretty steady since January, since the first payments off. A different way that we can look at this. Going from the Joe Biden what is going on under Donald Trump. The way we can do this is on immigration, what track are we on? It's
Thank
track
you.
or the wrong track. Back in December, just 14% of the public said we were on the right track.
So, give you a
62%, my
look-
goodness gracious, the
here.
vast majority said we were on the wrong track. Look at where we are now in April.
I got to
Look at this, 45% of the country says we're on the right track, compared to just 42% who are on the wrong track. So the plurality now say we're on the right track when it comes to immigration. Very much unlike what we saw under Joe Biden, under Donald Trump. The plurality say we're on the right track, not on the wrong track when it comes to immigration policy. So this is a great question. Deport all undocumented immigrants. That is voters favoring a government effort to deport all 11 million. Look at where we are now. 56%, the majority of voters agree with this policy, support it, just 43% opposed. That is a massive rise from where we were in 2016, when, of course, Donald Trump was running for the Republican nomination the first time around, when it was just 38%. The American public is much more so on Donald Trump's side now than back when he was running the
Q&A,
first time
Q&A.
around. Now, of course, this is
Long
the public
request, search
at large,
request.
right?
Let me
Let's
know.
dive a little bit more into the
What you want to
process.
see?
This should
What
give
you
you a
want to
very
do?
interesting
What you
look at
want to do?
where the public is, right? Deport
What
more
you
immigrants
heard?
here
What
illegally.
you?
Not much of a surprise.
That
Shane.
baby's new
90%
song?
of the
Everybody heard it.
we get 61% of independents.
Hey,
Clear majority.
Mr.
And half
Senator.
among Democrats. Even there, you get about a third
How
of
we doing?
Democrats who agree with the idea that we should deport more immigrants who are here legally. So yes,
So,
there's some
I guess
specific
this is
issues
all news,
which might not
since you guys
necessarily
here.
but when you look
I don't know,
specifically in
New York
immigration,
City, the
and
New
you
York
dive into
City,
these
they
crosshairs,
used to have.
and you look at
Well, it
Democrats,
used to
Independents, and
be.
Republicans, it's not much
It's
of a
a-
surprise that at this particular point in time, but slight, it is slight. So, get back.
So that, they used to.
See, as much as these
The New York Times is reporting that he complained about Musk bullying around him, exactly placed in the role, even though the IRS is under Bess's jurisdiction. Those complaints apparently paid off for it. Bess's deputy, Michael Faulkner, will now lead the agency as Trump's nominee, Congressman Billy Long, for the celebration. There becomes the fifth person. You see them all there. This whole Trump's inauguration. When there are stories to this effect. Another thing about this, you see, ended up to
And you guys just getting there.
So that's the big
I'm gonna say,
ended up
the table spot.
The people around us come up with the Donald Trump. This story is tested. And for example, that I'm happy that yet another time, Donald Trump. And I think
This story with I'm happy. Yet a so
unprecedented
he actively
Treasury Secretary Bethany
It's all kinds of things. It's like,
Maybe George do it. It's pretty sensitive to invade your privacy in order to pursue separate policy.
I've seen these things myself a couple years ago. I had no idea. I thought it wasn't there yet. Like that, you could actually get on the internet using things, you know. So
the reason
picture. I think this city could really use it. I'm surprised. Like nobody's telling
Thing because, the reason that Scott feuded is because Elon wants to tear everything down and start from everything anew, and Scott hasn't really wanted to grab this point, which I think is probably better for the country. And
and he does not get Action store, some people.
Yeah.
You kind of celebrate this for the same reason you said. There's been this narrative that Elon Musk is secretly running the whole government as he's a prime minister of the United States of America. I think we saw one of many examples today.
Romantic drama, which is.
He does not have infinite power. This is that are completely able to smack him down, and he doesn't always get it right. I think that some people say it's become a little bit.
2005 Pride and Prejudice is getting its 20th anniversary. Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden star the adaptation of Jane Austen's romantic drama, which is back in theaters over AMC. The station in Showtime and BakerSpeaker.com.
So,
Story looks at how the sport doomed beginning in the pandemic and why the professional league said to turn the bouncing ball into big.
We're on some lady, right?
No, I don't know.
But this guy didn't. He's in front of the police station.
With the, when programs, $6 million like they do today. Couple of years when
Judge, what?
Well, there's been plenty of talking about terror at the legal interactive show. And Richard, I believe is as far as the section of that.
Like, I don't know,
Essentially, that was just the bullshit itself, because now the tires are coming and go.
so like, police station.
A company like but if he's operating it wasn't the first time got 3 situations.
Get it the program. Essentially, we're for sale.
And then you've got the cars that are imported.
I should have put that in front of it.
From the roof, you can move your business, it's very difficult to comply in there. So as a business, the court,
Public here.
that's just comply with the rules.
Because this wasn't his older guy too, like. What this first time? Police.
Which is
be with who belong.
So that's the situation.
Kind of was like a violent sex crime. It was like murdering himself. Jacking on. The police station. That's still a lot. So that's why this didn't really surprise me. Like, you know, I'm picturing like, well, name dark guy jacking on. Two ladies. Blonde hair, like picture of black, dark black, officer, you know. After he on his shit, It's fun. It's sick, like, Jack was, in the street, New York City, to a blonde haired white baby, like me, you know, right? We're gonna have to happen too, like keep it going, like more violent. Also shit, but right? So have a come across something that like really surprised me.
Chronic migraine.
Is usually
Started sooner. So why wait? Talk to your doctor.
This can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Those with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions like rash, breathing problems, dizziness, neck and injection site pain, and headache. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor.
I guess people are getting like aggressive too, like I imagine like this. It's just, I don't think it's ever really been a problem here. It's like it's a problem here. Now they're like aggressive with these things. They're like, nigga, you can't especially like, you know. Trying to push up on the female for trying to have access to the internet, maybe in public.
We started over.
Like, yeah, I'll be able to probably take your phone if you leave it out. So you can't just leave your phone. Expect them to like, like if you're trained, hey man, they're just taking this.
Started over. The IRS is facing the largest workforce reduction in its history. 102,000 employees. A staggering drop. The New York Times reports that audit rates are now more than 2 times falling across every income bracket. With audits of high incomes dropping the most. It's those high income audits that's the biggest return. One of the IRS data audits of individuals making over $10 million from 147,000 per audit, just $4,600 for those running $25,000. So the question is, if these cuts go through, the IRS has fraud or even spot the as it's not auditing all of income brackets equally or strategically to use that benefit. One economist who studied audits across the income distribution found that every $1 the IRS collects in audits leads to $3 in future compliance. So fewer audits, less revenue. That's the bottom line. And all this as the deficit to grow now between 77 trillion. Between the two. So who's going to pay the ultimate price for the administration's political slash saving strategy?
You ever heard the thing?
Now is
I don't know if it's a theory. It's a theory. Darwin's theory.
I think instinctively Americans they
the bigger they are,
associated $17 in debt. What's the connection between
I think about that. Really wanted to be like
in place. Because errors.
might be, I don't know, getting
And I died. Third party. And those are currently
it's gonna be it's always like a thing.
The systems go in the.
But then you. Oh, what?
And
The first time I went to the color and that pussy so hard.
I want
I got this thing. Shit, right? So it's what you better be you're expecting to
the problem with that is
it's like guy.
that happens.
They might just say some shit like that. They did, man. You know, the shit. Females got blood, the test, limits, boundaries. They know that.
Resources like
Everybody a little racist. Some shit. Like the street, you know, as you're walking somewhere. About this shit. Because they're sweethearts, and it's like because they're sweethearts. Like I don't know. I thought you were a sweetheart. You're gonna keep this up. I'm not gonna this up with you. You gotta keep it 100, you know. No, like what I tell you about talking to black guys. You have to rip it in the hole now. Take them home. That's that out. And all it.
It's the process. Threatened to rule is
When we send
peace.
guided by humanitarian considerations, the Russian side is declaring a ceasefire from 6 p.m. today to midnight from Sunday to Monday, in order that all hostilities be halted for this period. We assume that the Ukrainian side will follow our example.
The ceasefire comes as a frustrated pressure
Whether
to walk away,
Ukraine and Russia
to forge a peace deal.
violating a recent
Timing,
to avoid targeting energy
criticism of its own footprint. But the ceasefire, the Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin says he expects Ukraine to follow. It's for less than 2 days far off the third President Trump and shortly Ukraine. One immediate issue is whether it will either Ukraine and Russia accuse each other of violating a recent agreement to avoid targeting energy infrastructure. And already, the Ukrainian leader has called the latest announcement yet another attempt by Putin to play with human lives. But there's a much bigger question: whether this, although the short ceasefire, can be extended to the beginning of the end of the Ukraine.
How Trump will rise in this country?
But I agree. I heard you. Let's bring them all back. And you know, let's do 4 years. Not before us. People we are looking into what I want to do. I would. Hearing your crazy El Salvador president, Nayib Bukele, and his political cabinet. I call them homegrown pillows. I mean, the home one that grew up and something was wrong, and the people over there with a baseball bat. You are looking into it, and you want to do it. I would love to do it.
Trump also learned something new in that same interview. Question, I didn't know what it was. He learned something? Yeah. I think so. Really.
It's not your question. So I like to teach you what's mathematical. So. So that's.
As soon as the energy will be low, we'll probably like support her. Moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or chronic flu-like symptoms after taking a medication like Humira or Remicade, put them in check with Rinvoq for once daily pill.
When symptoms start to take control, don't get rapid relief with Rinvoq.
And with the last part of slow window, I got lasting remission with Rinvoq check. And for in remission, even at nearly 3 years.
Rinvoq helps visibly reduce symptoms of the intestinal line.
Rapid symptom relief, lasting remission.
Visibly reduce symptoms.
Rinvoq can lower the ability to fight infections. Before treatment, experts in blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin, serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occur. Severe event risk increases in age 50 plus with other disease risk factor. These effects, infection, diversity, smoke, radiation, and don't take a allergy or have an infection.
I just give bunch of people the plan.
Keep them there. With Rinvoq, ask your gastroenterologist about Rinvoq. When choosing the right ear to the job done because gas or battery, your local all under one roof, right here in Milwaukee, Florida.
They come up with the
administration to Harvard. That's what the email was sent by. The federal government demands to scrap its EDI program. Trump's team is also pushing back by supporting the Republican. The research is bracing for possible layoffs. As their research animal, given lack of federal funds, standoff between the White House and America's oldest and richest university and the extreme reaction might be a fight that wants to have. Harvard psychology professor Steven Pinker is the president of the Council on Freedom and co-wrote a recent op-ed in the Harvard Crimson with the headline "From Capital Leadership, Harvard must not submit to a hostile takeover." Professor, nice to have you back in the program today. This that's this line can be sent in error. Others are wondering, could this all have been avoided? In the Crimson.
Letter dropped with a list of observations that basically a hostile takeover by the president space. A lot of negotiations have been going on based on a much milder opinion.
In the Crimson, on the screen and I'll read it aloud. The administration will overwhelmingly demand that the university, quote, commission an external party which shall satisfy the government, the federal government, to its competence and good faith, to audit the student body, faculty, staff, and leadership for viewpoint diversity, such that each department, field, or teaching unit must be individually viewpoint diverse. I said in my opening commentary today, I find that the traditional expand on that paragraph. Why
We have no idea what this is. We do think that there could be greater viewpoint diversity. The faculty too concentrated on one part of the political spectrum. On the other hand, we need government in and likely managing private university to satisfy demands of the and we have no idea what that is. Which indeed go against any conservative principle of limited government. Does it mean that the government can force the medical school to have anti-vaxxers? Can it force the biology department to have creationists? Can it force the history department to stop and steal? ideas. Even if viewpoint diversity is terrific, and it is, and there should be more. But having the government dictate what that means.
Will you respond to the comment, and I heard it from radio callers on Sirius XM this week, who say, tax
The review from after. The 80% of the endowment earmarked for uses for endowed shares for professors, for scholarships for students, for the athletic facilities. So the donors stipulated what it can go for. It's not a piggy bank that could be open. Also, the research that the government supports was competitively reviewed from institutions. And this is, it's not like a charity that supports Harvard in general. There are specific research projects. If the funding goes, then those research projects stop. Now, Harvard could try to dip into its savings to pay for what used to be federally funded research in cancer and child development and so on. But eating its food means that it would disappear, and that could only be sustainable for a short period of time.
Is President Trump winning this battle? The outset of the program today, I don't believe I argue that his motives here are to protect Jewish students. I do believe the university was initially in responding to anti-Semitism, but no thesis is he's using this as a means of fighting academia in the same way that he's fighting Big Law and the same way that he's fighting Big Media. Your thought?
The idea that we should define cancer research around Jewish victims, I don't think that's so good for the Jews. And as my grandmother would say, no thanks. That is not an effective way. Semitism, I think Harvard should have to speak down on some of the more disruptive pro-Palestinian protests. But the idea that Harvard is a bastion of anti-Semitism is 3 of our last 4 presidents who served longer than a year were Jewish, and the 4th was married to a Jewish professor. 2 of our last 2 co-hosts were Jewish. The head of the corporation that runs Harvard is Jewish. Plenty of Jewish faculty, Jewish students. Hillel is thriving. There are anti-Semitic incidents that should have been cracked down on more decisively. But the idea that this is the way to combat anti-Semitism just makes no sense at all. And I don't believe it.
Nice to have you back. Thank you, sir.
Nice to be on. Thank you.
More than 20 robotic runners raced against thousands of human contestants in what's believed to have been the world's first humanoid half marathon. Breathe easy. The 2-legged machines lost by a lot. When humanoid robot Tiangong Ultra is created by Beijing Humanoid Robot Innovation Center. It finished in 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's about 2 hours behind the world record of 56 minutes and 42 seconds held by Ugandan runner Jacob Kiplimo. Still, that didn't stop onlookers from cheering the humanoid robots on. Almost all of the robots had help from the human handlers who ran or walked next to them. Some were led by remote control.